Welcome back to Inside Politics. Our guest today is Dr. John Weil from Middle Tennessee State University, political science professor there and dean of the Honors College. Dr. Weil, as we continue to look at all this, is the president going to get more aggressive about vaccination mandates? He's this week decided that all the nursing homes and their employees have to get vaccinated or face the loss of federal funds. He previously put some other categories of federal workers in that. It looks like he's making the military do it as well, although that may take until after we have to get these vaccines approved permanently. Is the president being too aggressive on this or not enough?
You know, I think we're seeing just about the same kind of development at the private enterprise level. And as far as I know, if you're in what's known as an at-will employee, which is most, an industry, particularly where you're dealing with other people, can in fact mandate that if you want to keep your job, you have to get vaccination. A lot of this, as you say, is probably going to be worked out in the courts.
Also, in terms of the vaccine, we're soon going to have one, we think, for children ages 3 to 11. It'll be for emergency use at first. Isn't this going to bring just more controversy and perhaps the most yet, because we're talking about our most precious possessions, particularly for parents, and that's their young children. If some people don't want to have it put in their own arms,
yes,
they probably don't want it to be put into the children's arms either, especially the young ones.
No, that's right. Although it works both ways. You know, others are going to say, my child's life is at risk if your child is still subject to getting COVID.
One last question related to the COVID response. Governors across the country have been the heroes and then suddenly have become the villains in all this. You've had the governor of California, who's now facing a recall election. Yes, the governor of Michigan had to deal with kidnapping and death threats. Now the governor of New York, Governor Cuomo, has resigned. Some of the charges that he's leaving under fire on include some virus issues related to deaths in nursing homes and state funds used to promote his book. Also, he's had a number of charges about sexual harassment and improper behavior. Can you ever remember a rash or difficulties for those in some of the top elected offices of the country? Is this a sign that perhaps this country is just not in a very good mood right now and don't have much tolerance for problems that even top elected officials have?
Perhaps. You may remember we had something not dissimilar with the Tea Party movement, where, you would have these mass meetings of people getting up and screaming and, we don't want government health care and the like. So, if you study history, hardly anything is completely unique, but it seems to be a more dire time than some, for sure.
When politicians exit, they often give farewell addresses. You're working on a book about that.
Yes.
Sounds pretty fascinating. Mm-hmm. Are you including ones like President Nixon and, for that matter, Governor Cuomo's?
I am. In fact, I was riding in the car coming back from Virginia when Cuomo gave his speech, and if you've ever gone down the road and see someone hopping up and down in their seat, about 5 minutes before he said it, I said, he's getting ready to say goodbye. This is a farewell speech. So I could hardly wait to get back home and add that chapter. But I also have a speech by Sarah Palin when she resigned from the governorship of Alaska, and there are about a dozen Southerners who gave speeches right before the Civil War when they left the Senate.
Moving to another topic, President Biden probably took his most political lumps this week for what happened when he removed all the troops from Afghanistan. That's a 20-year war, our longest ever there. There's been a lot of public support for getting out of there, but when the reality hit, it didn't come off too well. The response at best has been chaotic, and it continues. Is this just going to turn out to be an unmitigated disaster that will leave a permanent mark on the Biden administration?
It will. I mean, he's able to share some blame in the sense that, Trump's actually the one who negotiated and even earlier exited in May. I think, we didn't elect Biden because he was the most charismatic candidate. We elected him because we thought he was competent. And this really is a test of, you would think somebody who's been in government for 40 years or more would do a little bit better on the pre-planning. A lot of this, I think, as Biden himself says, was foreseeable. Well, if it was, why were we pulling troops out? Why didn't we secure the airport?
Well, he also said that back in July that we would not see scenes like we saw in Saigon in Vietnam when we left there in 1975. Yet those pictures that we saw coming out of there this week look a whole lot like what happened in Saigon.
They do. Of course, you had the helicopter, hovering over the embassy, but you also had somebody, passing a child over barbed wire. These are images that they're hard to take as an American.
Now, this happens to all presidents, but have the developments in Afghanistan, perhaps more than anything else, begin to mark the end of President Biden's honeymoon in Washington?
I think it has. You know, reading about Franklin Roosevelt said he was elected as Mr. New Deal. And as soon as developments started happening in Europe, he switched and said, I'm now Mr. Win the War. You can come in with what agendas you want, but events are going to shape a lot of it.
The president now says he will keep American troops in Afghanistan until all the American citizens who want to leave can leave. It's not quite sure exactly what he'll do about our Afghan allies who are still there and want to get out. The deadline to pull out is the end of the month. But do you think it'll be longer now just to make sure he can do it? And if he brings more people out, doesn't that sort of bolster his case that at least he's done the best he could in a bad situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've plighted our faith to these people, and as much as possible, we need to fulfill our obligations. And this has been in the news for the last 2 or 3 months. People applying for passports and been unable to get them. And again, we elected somebody that we thought was competent. He needs to be able to show it.
Dr. John Vital, Middle Tennessee State University, is our guest on Inside Politics. Back to continue our conversation on the other side of this break. Stay with us.